Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to our ERP Digital Transformation Roundtable. Thank you to the folks at Alger for giving us this wonderful space and taking such good care of us. Really appreciate it. So we've got an agenda for today, but this is a roundtable. So the intent is not to PowerPoint everybody to death. Yes, Tom?
Put it in presentation mode, please.
Oh, sorry. Put it in presentation mode. All right. All right, so in terms of our agenda today, we'll talk briefly about trends in financial services related to ERP. And then we've got some folks from three great organizations that have either implemented a cloud ERP solution or in the process of implementing a solution. We'll be interacting with them. And then for those of you that are here in person, you will be measured for a custom tailored shirt, which will then be shipped to you after the session. So appreciate all of those attended in person. And then we should be wrapping up. If you're remote, we'll be wrapping up at around 3 p.m. Folks that are here from 3 to 4 will be networking and shirt measurement. So in terms of our distinguished panel today, we've got Nick Morello from Alger, again, hosting us. Nick, thanks for joining, and again, all the logistics of getting this great space. Eric Hernandez from DNB. Thank you, Eric. Chris Camulia from IDB, New York. And then we've got Lee Briggs and Tom Simkus from Creel. All right, so I had this boss years ago, and he said you should start every meeting with your success criteria for the meeting. So if you didn't have a slide that said this meeting will be successful if the meeting ended immediately. So in a nutshell, this is a learning experience, right? So we want to share information, gain knowledge. Hopefully, they said a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So maybe you'll share some lessons learned that others in the group will learn from. And then hopefully it's an opportunity for you to build your network. And then finally, for those of you who are getting a shirt, it'll be successful if you get a shirt that fits and becomes a permanent part of your wardrobe. All right, so I have one rule for today. I used to say failure is not an option. So for this session, silence is not an option. So if you're thinking of sitting in the back of the room and being quiet, that's not going to work. We're going to make you talk. You will. We do want everybody to be interactive, to ask questions. The more discussion we have, the more value it'll be for everybody that's in person as well as those that are remote. All right, so I thought I'd start off with just discussion around digital transformation. And I'm not sure, is it the latest buzzword or is it something that's dramatically different? I've been implementing solutions since, I guess, I won't say how long, but it's been a while, like many years. And way back when, it was all about implementing systems to make processes better. And that's really the spirit of digital transformation. I guess the difference is back then it was client-server technology, right? And now it's cloud technology and others, new technology like AI, and IoT that present new opportunities for us. Okay. So as you look at digital transformation, that could be a whole lot of systems, right? Today, we're focused just on the ERP component of it. And there's several promises of ERP, and we'll talk today to everyone to see what the reality of those promises are. But it's really new technology in the cloud. That's really about streamlining business processes, giving access to better information more efficiently, scaling up and down to support business needs. We're just talking today about folks working from home, right? So supporting a distributed workforce, and then improved usability. So I'll ask the group to start off. This is your first question. Are there any other benefits that you had as expectations when you were implementing your ERP solution?
I mean, just the ability to access it remotely on any device.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not something that you can do unless you're using a cloud-based system or a system that supports that type of access.
Right. Yeah, security is a lot easier. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so with all of the interest in digital transformation, these are some statistics that pulled off of Deloitte's website. Everybody seems to agree it's something that needs to happen, but the question is whether organizations are ready for adoption. And we're kind of having a small dialogue before the session about user adoption and organizational adoption being a key linchpin in terms of being successful with an ERP implementation. All right, so that's the preamble. I wanted to get through that rather quickly, just to kind of set the stage for everybody. Now, the way this is going to work is Chris is going to start off. He's got just a few slides just to kind of set the stage for who he is, what IDB does, and then what their ERP journey is. And we should feel comfortable to ask Chris questions. And I think you get an extra shirt if you ask a question that he can't answer. But we do want to be respectful to the organizations that are here. There's no expectation for you to share proprietary information. If you feel that the question's being asked that is going to put you in that position, you can defer that question. Okay? All right, so Chris, we'll get started with you. Oops.
Hi, my name is Chris Kamulia. I work for Israel Discount Bank. I've been with the bank for about 17 years. When I started, I was the assistant controller, and I was in charge of basically setting up our new ERP system. Right now, I've moved on. I started an expense management group. I'm running procurement, vendor risk management, and accounts payable, among some other things. But that's really what's related to what we're going to be speaking about today. I've been working with Oracle for about 25 years. It's scary to say that. My career is just about 30 years, and I've been working with Oracle for 25 years. Absolutely. And I've done a couple of EBS implementations and probably a half a dozen upgrades. So worked a lot with Oracle. Now, at IDB, just a little background about IDB. It's Israel Discount Bank. We are in Midtown. We're almost $13 billion. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of a bank in Israel. And we are a commercial bank. Bank has been around since 1949. And we do have a presence in South America as well.
And you just relocated to new office space.
Yes.
Which I'm looking forward to seeing.
And the picture actually is of our old space.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yes, it
so
is.
we got the wrong picture.
The top one is the old space, the bottom one is the new space.
Oh, okay,
So.
okay, there you go. And that's a picture from when you started, right?
Yes. Okay, so we went live on version 11 at IDB in 2009. And with that implementation, it was a significant implementation. We changed our chart of accounts. And whenever you work with Oracle, you know if you change your chart, your currency, your calendar, it's a big deal. So we changed our chart of accounts, which means every subsystem that it feeds into Oracle, and every outgoing feed needed to be changed and updated. So the biggest challenge was not necessarily setting up Oracle. It was having every subsystem feed properly on a daily basis. That was the real reason why we actually had a delay in our implementation. It was delayed about, I believe it was 4 months back then. Since then, at that time, we put in general ledger, fixed assets, and accounts payable. Now, since then, we've upgraded to 12, and in 2020, we upgraded to the cloud. When we upgraded to the cloud, very interesting. Our first kickoff meeting was in the office, and the second kickoff meeting was at home. So the end of March, we had our remote kickoff meeting, and we went live in August. We were actually 2 weeks late, which for me, that's considered on time, especially when no one was used to working remotely. We added procurement, we added expenses, and a couple of other tools. But ultimately, we kept the general ledger payables and fixed assets.
That was it. So you did EBS originally.
Yes.
And in the same company did cloud. Talk a little bit about the differences between those implementations. And
Sure. So In 2009, the biggest challenge, as I said, was the chart of accounts. In 2020, the biggest challenge was working from home. Moving from 12 to the cloud was much easier because there was really little to no change of our chart. And I really think the biggest challenge was getting everybody aligned to work remotely and the change management side of it. Change management became a very big issue for us because everybody was working remotely. One of the biggest challenges we had with Oracle is the CCCS module for doing the eliminations did not work for the bank because it did not allow us to calculate our average balances. So what we did is we actually used the processes from 12 and brought them into the cloud, and we run our eliminations, and we still have them running in the general ledger and posting entries in the general ledger. We actually use a bot to run the eliminations and reverse them on a daily basis and do all our daily processing. So we're notified if something goes wrong.
Interesting. Okay.
So, one of the benefits I always like to talk about is when you move to Oracle, accounts payable was one of our biggest benefits. It's all the control and the workflows that go around the accounts payable system. Since we went live with accounts payable, October 2009, and I always knock on wood when I say this, we have not had a financial loss due to an accounts payable error through today. Tomorrow's another day, but
Well,
as
we're
of right now,
here today, so
So the controls that we put in place with the workflows and who's responsible for approving invoices, how we pay invoices, how we update the vendor information in the system, the controls surrounding all the payment information, whether it's a wire, ACH, check, Visa card. The controls that Oracle has in place, best practice, makes it easy. Makes it very difficult for you to screw up, and it makes it easy for you to be successful.
So, question for you. So, Oracle, as you probably know, does quarterly updates.
Yes.
Included in those updates are obviously bug fixes and whatnot, but it's also new functionality. Do you guys find that you are taking new functionality, as it comes out? Are you reviewing it? Like, what are you guys looking at? What's your process to turn on new features?
So we are on a quarter lag.
Okay.
So as new processes come in, we'll test it, see how it will work for us, and then the following quarter, we will implement.
Okay.
And some of the bug fixes you have to put in right away.
Right.
We always test every quarter. We're testing. We have our IT department. They do a very good job working with our accounting team to make sure that we test everything that they say we need to test. We've never had an issue with any of the testing or any issues regarding any of those enhancements. But as far as new features, we will wait a quarter before we put it out there. That gives us time not only to test it ourselves, but to put out procedures, update processes, and train. Because bottom line, it all comes back to change management. If you do not train the users, they will not use it.
how willingness did you find your users to adopt a change in the ERP system?
2009 or now?
Yeah. I know 2009 was probably a big change, right?
2009, it was very difficult, because the change was so dramatic to what the bank was doing. At the time, there were 3 or 4 general ledgers. Everybody was used to this old system, and it would take a month to close the books. Now we told them we're going to close in 5 days, and everybody was flipping out. When we were moving from 12 to the cloud, it was much, much easier. Everybody knew the process. They knew who to speak to in accounting. They knew what we were going to do. We laid it out for them very easily. The one really good thing that Oracle and their partners put together for us are all the training documents.
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring everybody in, you train them. And after that training, you follow up with a phone call, say, hey, did you try this? What'd you see? And you get some feedback, and then you bring them in for a second training. Everybody was willing to learn, and it was a very successful implementation.
Great. we classify implementations as,
I call this a re-implementation.
Yeah,
Because
it's a
going
re-
from 12 to cloud, it's really a re-implementation.
Yeah.
It's not, when you go from 11 to 12, that's completely different going from 12 to cloud.
and some of the things that we find on projects where they're coming from systems that have been in place for a long time and not necessarily EBS is trying to recreate old business processes in cloud, which, I don't know, was that a challenge when you did the implementation here at Alger?
For us, it was such a complete change that we abandoned all of our old processes pretty much. There was no overlap, right? It was such an increase in capability that was more like, how do we get what we used to do to work in this new framework?
Okay,
Yeah.
so you didn't have users fighting you or?
Well, we sure did,
Yeah.
but
You were
but
overpowered.
it was up against functionality that wasn't up to par, so they won the day. But it was also probably that user's desire to implement the change, running up against it as well.
Okay.
Chris, when you moved from R12 to cloud, most people have to make a decision as far as how much data they're going to bring over from EBS to cloud. Did you guys make that decision to bring, I mean, really 2009 is a long time. It's really not that long. Like you could have brought everything over. I wouldn't recommend it, but what did you bring over and how did you make that decision?
So two things. Number one, we did not bring everything over.
Okay.
We brought 3 years over,
Okay.
including accounts payable data. We have I guess our old system is still set up somewhere where we have access to it, so if we needed to go back to 2009, we can. We only brought in 3 years because to go back any further, the bank has changed so much, it really wouldn't be necessary to go back. I mean, the number of times we've gone back to our old system to look at any information, I'm going to say it's probably 15 times over the last 3-4 years. It really hasn't been a lot.
We are recording this, right?
Yeah, so we had a client, they've wanted, 90 years of history?
How many?
90. 90.
Oh, they're out of their minds.
Insistent on it, and,
So we get the thing we get in consulting all the time is we go to we run historical reports all the time. And I'm always like, okay, well, what's all the time? Like every day. So you could show me that you run a report every day. And then it really turns out, they've run a historical report for something older than 5 years, like once in the last 5 years. You do see it a lot. So that was an excellent decision. So you keep the database or something living someplace. So if you needed to go back to it, you can certainly get back to it.
Yes.
So from cloud to ERP, EBS to ERP, from a financial section structure didn't change that much. Probably there's some really nice enhancements. If you had to pick the best enhancement in functionality from EBS to ERP cloud, and there's a lot. If you had to pick one, what would you say?
Great question. I think the best process that I see, and I'm being a little selfish here, since we decided to implement procurement, and I'm looking at, and I still have accounts payable reporting to me, for me, the vendor module that will control both procurement and vendor management, and since I'm running vendor risk management, I'm really enjoying the coherent system to control all my vendors and all their information and comparing it to my vendor system. So, I'm not in charge of our ERP system anymore. I passed it on to someone else who's working in the department. They're really dealing with all the general ledger, fixed assets, and all that stuff. Me, I'm living in procurement and accounts payable right now, and I really like the vendor system that they have. Having said that, I am not moving my third-party risk management system over. I believe Oracle has a module that I looked at a couple of years ago. I'm not moving that over yet.
Okay.
My intention is to build out procurement, which would include our contract module and everything else. And when I look at that, that's when I'll decide what I want to do.
When you say risk management can mean a lot of things to a lot of different folks. So do you mean risk management from internal controls that impact your financial statements, or do you mean risk management from some higher qualifications, or?
So I'm talking third-party risk management, which is
Okay.
a regulatory function
Yes.
to know who your vendors are,
Okay.
to review your vendors,
Got it.
whether it be onboarding a vendor to ensure that they meet the regulatory requirements,
Got it.
whether it's compliance, risk, business continuity, information security,
Yep.
et cetera. Onboarding, the monitoring of those vendors, which and today, all the systems that everybody has, we're reviewing, I don't know, 40 SOC reports on a quarterly basis. So reviewing all those SOC reports,
Yep.
SIG reports, SIG lights, doing all that through a third-party risk management, a second line of defense role, knowing all your vendors, it really does help my process.
Okay.
Do you have so I'm going to ask you a tough question. Do you have a vision for future use of AI in what you're doing?
Well, I know this is an Oracle event here.
It is a
but I
financial
will
services
tell you-
roundtable. You can speak open and honest.
So when we went to cloud and we tried the AI function for taking accounts payable invoices, scanning it and putting all the
OCR
information in.
function, yeah.
Yes, terrible.
But when'd you try it?
So here's the thing, we just had Oracle in again and they told us we have to try the new one.
Yeah.
So we haven't tried the new one yet, that's on our docket for next year.
Yeah.
But that AI function, and I told Oracle straight out, I said, this is just a complete waste of time, it's terrible. But they did tell me that it has been updated and it's great now.
Well,
I'm gonna challenge them on that.
The old function, and so Nick will
Yeah,
get
I
this
could
piece
jump
too.
in on
Nick used to use it, but it wasn't AI. It was optical
we-
character recognition, the new stuff, and you can say, it is AI. It truly is AI, and if you train it, it actually, and again, we'll cut through it when Nick goes to this piece.
Yeah, I'll
But the old
touch on it in a
OCR
moment,
stuff,
but yeah, I can tell the whole
it was
story.
not great, but the new stuff actually is AI. So that's probably the biggest
I appreciate,
difference.
Chris, for you dogging it as hard as you did, because I was afraid to, but now I can.
I've said it to
Thanks for
Oracle,
inviting Chris to do this. We knew what we were getting into.
I've said it to Oracle and they've asked me about some other modules and I said, no, it's a waste, don't do it. But, when I look at the benefits the bank has gotten and even other places I've set up, the GL and accounts payable, I mean, the benefits were tremendous.
Now, do you use Oracle in Israel and in South America, or just the States?
So only in the States.
Only in the States?
Yes.
And for consolidations, you talked about running consolidations on a regular basis and from R12. So what is your method of consolidation for IDB? Is it Excel, or what tool do you guys use to bring the financials together? Or do you not need to because they're the way you report?
So first, the consolidation that we do is our Discount Bank Corp, which is the parent company of the bank, and we have several subsidiaries. So these are the only consolidations and eliminations we're running.
Okay.
We run them through Oracle, it's downloaded into Excel,
Okay.
and that's how we do our reporting.
Okay.
Having said that, what we do for the Bank of Israel, regulatory reporting and financial statement reporting, is we have a person working in our finance department that actually takes those numbers, puts them into shekels,
Yeah.
and reports regulatory, because their regulatory rules are a little different,
Yes.
and the reporting requirements are a little different, so he takes it and he does his adjustments before it gets sent over to Israel.
Okay.
Was there a reason why you lean that way, having implemented EPM with FCC?
I just think, I don't think there was any particular reason in why we did it this way compared to any other way. It just,
Okay.
very simple for us to do.
Questions for Chris? I mean, we don't have to stop. We can just ask Chris, play Stump the Chump all day long. I would enjoy watching it.
At least someone would.
Yeah. All right. Nick, you want to?
I actually I could jump in on one point. We were talking about historical data. We put in 5 years of historical data when we upgraded, and did it month by month balances. So that's however many companies we have, however many months of 5 years, was like the biggest lift of the upgrade, and we have not used that data once. And if you think about, if your old data can live in your new system and give you everything that you need, did you even need to upgrade in the first place? So like that old data doesn't have the format or,
Right.
so I just,
The only reason I advocate for, I like 3 years, and I'll tell you the biggest reason I do it. And I like it so you can get trend reporting if you want it, but the biggest reason I like it, it's a big enough sample size that if you did something wrong in your mapping, if you're changing your chart, if you're not changing your chart, I don't care what you bring up, it doesn't matter to me, but from a consulting standpoint, if you're changing your chart, if you go back 3.5 years, there's a million different times you did a reclass, you coded something wrong, and if you did your mapping wrong and you only bring over one, and I've seen it so many times where we bring over a year because the client can't, won't, or is unwilling to bring over more than that, and then we get 3 or 4 months in, and their financials don't look the way that they expect. And the reason is because in their mapping, something they thought was going, to cost of goods sold is actually going to admin or selling expenses. And the best way to see that is to go, you map the data, it's work. And that's why for you guys, we did 5 because we wanted to torture you a little bit, Nick, but for most other folks, we just do 3.
No, I knew there'd be some pushback on that, but that was, we personally haven't used it, but it's a good reason too, definitely.
Let's talk about Alger.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I just have one more question. So expense management, I know is kind of your thing now. Talk a little bit about what you're trying to do and some of the challenges you're having.
Trying to control expenses at a bank that doesn't want to control their expenses.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. Right now, before I started the procurement department, the only thing, there was a procurement group and they were covering $1 million worth of the bank spend. And, our financial statements you could find because we are a bank. This year, I think we're going to spend about $280 million. So when you're controlling, $1 million, you're not controlling anything.
Sure.
So my goal is to cover the discretionary spend of the bank, not including salaries and benefits. We're going to keep that for HR. So my job right now is expand the procurement department to be a centralized function to cover all discretionary bank spend throughout the bank. And when you talk about that, you look at the one group that really is spending way too much money. It's always your IT department. So they're the ones who are fighting us the most because when you dig into their expenses, you see there's a lot of room for savings. And that's what we're working on right now.
Okay. And the other systems you have on premise, in the cloud, hosted?
All of the above, depending on which system you're talking about. But our core system, deposit system, is in the cloud. Some of our loan systems are in the cloud. One is still in-house.
You're still running offset, right?
Still running
Did you ever
offset.
go to the newer version of it?
Not yet.
Not
We are
yet.
in talks with Oracle. We are looking at that. We have data strategy and data governance projects going on.
Okay.
And one of them is to upgrade our OFSA system.
Okay. Good.
Because we are on 4.1 and 6.0, I think it is. So they are way past end of life.
Can you spend 2 minutes, not everybody knows what offset is, just spend 2 minutes to explain what it is?
So Oracle Financial Services, I believe is the name.
Yeah, something
And
like that.
basically it's,
I couldn't figure out what the A was at the end.
yeah, but now it's OFS.
It was a precursor to Crystal Ball, wasn't it?
I don't.
No, OFSAA was like profitability.
Yes,
Right,
okay.
it was
We use
all
it for
kinds of
funds
different-
transfer pricing,
funds transfer pricing,
profitability,
stuff like that.
division profitability. It does some calculations for us for funds transfer pricing, and we are still using it. And it works well. We don't have any problems with it, but really it all comes down to the data and the data feeds and what needs to be updated and what hasn't been updated since we put this in 2010. So, but we are looking to update that.
So here's a loaded question, and this is actually not just, it's for Chris right now, but I'm going to ask Nick the same question, and then want to ask Chris the same question, it's your turn. So have you noticed a decrease in your IT spend, at least with regards to Oracle, right? So you don't need a server, whether it's in somebody else's cloud or in your own cloud, and you get, you're not doing your upgrades and you're getting all the benefits. So is it the same dollars out the door, is it less, is it a little bit more?
So, great question. Because when we went to cloud, our spend actually decreased significantly. I don't remember what the dollars or the percentage was, but it was a significant decrease. Having said that, as I start this expense management, and this is something that I had to explain to the board. We went to the board when we were doing cloud, and we said we're going to save money. We had a whole deck presentation prepared. And in May, I was in front of the board and I show how much money we're spending on each of our vendors. And Oracle, there was a significant amount of money. And someone called me out and said, you told me we were going to save money on Oracle. I said, but here it comes. It's not only Oracle, ERP, and EPM. We also have several databases throughout the organization, and we're paying Oracle for all those. And this number that I was showing was combined. So I told them it's not only Oracle, ERP, and we are saving money there, and I actually broke it down for them. And I also broke down how many different Oracle databases we have for loan systems and other systems throughout the bank. So I had to break it down because I was asked that same question.
Yeah. So where was the bulk of savings? Was it in infrastructure? Was it in improved business processes?
I think it was infrastructure and licensing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even the licensing, the bundle gave us more modules that we started using, and it was cheaper.
When we'll get to Alger, but when Alger bought, the licensing was completely different. So we actually just moved Alger over to the bundled pricing, and they get a lot more stuff. Some of it they're starting to take advantage of. But what we see with our clients that we move, and the IT guys really appreciate this more than the finance guys, the elasticity of cloud is better, right? So some of them are smart enough to manage that, at month end, and Oracle's smart enough to know, because they've got AI behind the scenes, they can add more procs, they can add more RAM as you need it. So as you're consuming more resources, and that's included in your license, they can throw more two procs at month end so that your jobs run faster, and then they pull them away and give them to somebody else when they need them. Whereas if you're hosting your environment, whether it's in your facility or if it's in somebody else's cloud, you have to have somebody do that. Right? And you have to have a DBA that knows how to do that. You have to have a network guy that knows how to do that. That stuff it's not necessarily, and that's probably not in your Oracle calculations, but it's there, right? And it's hard to quantify, but those are real savings.
Chris, when did you get out of CardWorks?
Let's see, end of 2006.
In 2006? Okay.
You know CardWorks?
Yeah, they moved from EBS to cloud as well, so we moved about 2 years ago, yeah.
Did you work with them on that?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, what company are you with?
I managed the New York team for ERP for 8 or 9 years.
Oh, okay.
So I worked with Cantor Fitzgerald as well, so I worked there as well. So I did a ton of financial services up here.
So I believe they use Peloton to do their upgrade. I was talking to them about their upgrade. Actually, I was just on the phone with them because they're looking to expand procurement. I'm still very friendly with everyone at CardWorks. So I was just talking to the Utah group and telling them what to expect out of procurement.
So that's the bank, right?
Yes, Merit Bank.
Yeah, Merit Bank, exactly.
Right. All right. What did you warn them about?
To get the staffing up front. I'm still fighting for staffing. You cannot do this without the proper staffing. There's just the volume of contracts, whether it's new vendors or renewals, just going through the contracts and updating everything we need to on the contract side. As the world changes, your contracts are getting more and more detailed. The analysis we do on our contracts are so much better than what we did 5 years ago. And I need more lawyers.
Said no one ever.
You need to add on that in a bus going off a cliff.
Well, Tom's an attorney, so.
Don't worry, I just had one sit right next to me. I have a new lawyer that joined my group, so.
Excellent. All right, Nick, you're up next.
All right,
Can
so,
I ask one question?
Sure,
Because
sure.
Being that you're a bank and you're global, not completely global, but international, was going to the cloud, did you pick to go to the cloud because of security? Does it help? Have you ever had a security breach?
So through Oracle, we've never had a security breach.
Okay.
Before we move any system onto the cloud, we need approval from head office because they are not big fans of cloud services. Having said that, in the last few years, they've been loosening their grip. Obviously, if we were already on Oracle, it was the next logical move. We had Oracle give the chief accounting officer in Israel a presentation on what was going on, and they approved it. We had no problems.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
all right.
All right.
That's fine.
Nick, tell us who you are.
So I'm Nick Morello. I'm the assistant controller here at Alger. I just want to thank everybody for coming to our office and thank Alger Management too for offering up the space. A little bit about myself. I'm a CPA with an MBA in finance. I have experience in tax consulting, public accounting, audit, and tax prep. Before all that, I then decided to go into private industry and work in financial services, where I have for quite some time. I've worked at an investment bank, fintech brokerage, which I think there might be somebody from Tower Research attending, which is funny because the Line Brokerage is a sister company of that organization. And then now I've been at Alger for 11 years. Alger itself, if you could go to the next slide, is we're a boutique, investment manager with a variety of products across, different capitalizations. And next year will be our 60th anniversary. Our accounting, finance, regulatory reporting, family office team, 6 people. We've been 6 people since before I got here. When I did get here, we were in Jersey City and New York City, and that was it. We now have investment manager in Boston, investment manager in the UK, a satellite research presence in Denver, and we just opened up a broker-dealer, or trying to open up a broker-dealer in Singapore. So firm's grown quite a bit. And so previously we were using Mass 50 as our accounting software, and Rob Kinsel, who just exited the room, our CFO, he made the decision to upgrade the GL system in 2014. So we worked with Creel, who was then BizTech, on our implementation configuration, and went live on January 1st of 15. So we've been on the cloud for 9 years almost. At the end of this year will be 9 years. And we are a small team, a small company. And I think that's the unique perspective we offer here, is that, Oracle can work for a team of our size. All right, and so we went live with GL, payables, and fixed assets initially. And the 2015 version of invoice imaging. So I'll get into that a little bit later on. But so we went from a 2-segment GL to a 10-segment GL. We had to re-engineer everything to fit in that framework. And that took definitely a big effort, but we get a lot of benefit out of it. And then following summer, we implemented cash management. And for a few years, we just worked with those modules before reconnecting with BizTech, who is now de novo, and adding FCCS, planning and budgeting. And recently, we're going through another cash management wave because we decided to go with First Republic Bank for a very brief moment of time, and are now re-implementing with JP Morgan. Which is great because you kind of get to start from scratch, but it's a process we're familiar with.
So we do need to let you know.
Yeah.
It's one more company now. So we got acquired a couple weeks ago by SMX. So
Right.
one more name in the
Right.
journey.
We're trying to get to 10.
Yeah.
So Mass 50 had an external reporting tool called FRX. It didn't talk to the system. It didn't update. It was really cumbersome to just run like a basic income statement, or even your financials. And Oracle just having account hierarchies just kind of solved all of that for us. All of our management reports, and as far as like income statements, financials, are all kind of push of a button, whereas before it was like managing and manually updating all those things. We did variance analysis, profitability reporting, and regulatory reporting, ad hoc analysis, all very quickly, which Rob could attest to as he asked for things. And they're pretty easy for us to access. Service requests, lessons learned, this was something.
You did this back in the day when
There were so many. And yeah, it was hard to tell at the beginning, was this something that wasn't working, or was because we didn't know how to do it? And the manner in which service requests are handled by Oracle changed a lot over our time, where it was like you had a point person, and then you had a
customer success manager.
Exactly. Wow. I forgot about that. Yeah. And then it was like a team, and now it's none of that, and it works better than it ever has. The turnaround time, the knowledge base, it asks you so many questions whenever you're trying to put one in. Oftentimes I will put up a service request and then find it myself in the knowledge base. It's become so much easier to use. But the point I'm really making there is you need somebody who's comfortable with that tech speak and trying to, it's hard to articulate what's wrong with your system, because you are seeing what you see, and your knowledge of Oracle is your knowledge. So you kind of need somebody on your team who maybe has that experience or is comfortable speaking that language, or at least to enough of a degree to have some success with a service request, because it can be daunting at first if something's not working. I think it's a little overwhelming. But I think that process has improved greatly, but it's definitely something to consider who you think is going to be handling that.
Are all 6 people on your team putting in service requests, or have you kind of
Mostly
picked one person?
just myself, but honestly I haven't had to do one in a really long time. We know how things work, and if it's really confusing, we'll bother Creel. But for the most part, we've been able to work to a point where we don't even really need to do them. But it was a pain point at first, I'd say. There's been an evolution, so I would say that's kind of a positive at this point. So nomenclature matters. This is just an opinion on like GL strings. We went from 2 to 10. I don't even know that we need a 10. I know the old adage or thing Lee likes to say is, if you're going to report on it should be in your GL. Which is,
Never heard that before.
well, I've heard enough times it's drilled in my head, and we wind up having one that has all the aspects of a given product as the key identifier, and we leverage that into almost every report. We probably would have been okay with 6 at the end of the day, but because the reason that I could say that is because we were so strict in the naming convention of that one that it has all the data points in it, and it's really easy to just review and know all the aspects of a product from that one thing. It's just it's good to save a lot of time on data input. It's always nice to have that cushion to land on. Maybe, oh yeah, these segments I can always use in the future, but you got to think about the people putting the data in.
So for the ones that you don't use, Nick, like I remember we talked at the time, we didn't default a lot in, but like, do you default a lot of those values in now, or do you key them?
We still use them all except for one. So we did find a use for one of the open ones.
Okay.
It's just that we don't get asked to do strategy reporting or sales channel reporting, those kinds of profitability. So, we thought we might need them. We just don't get asked.
Yeah.
We get asked for share class once in a while on an audit thing, but mostly just doing it by product does the trick for us.
I've only had, in 25 years of doing this, and it wasn't I didn't do the implementation, but I've only had one client that ran out of segments. They went live with 8, and they only had 1 future use. And when Lee and I do it, we always insist on 2.
Yeah.
Sometimes to our client's chagrin. But if you don't, like what they wound up having to do was they wound up having to put FCCS in. This is our friends up in Maine that did this. And they added attributes to their data so that they get their financial reporting out of FCCS. So it was an Oracle way to do it. But yet it's always a delicate conversation when you're having with somebody, especially when you come up with a really simple system. Like if somebody's got, we only got 3 segments, that's all we're gonna need. And they sometimes don't understand the ramifications, that if you limit it to 3, you're limited to 3.
We found a use case for one of the 2 almost right away. So, even though we have, so it's nice to still have the one extra one, but there's all these other factors that, we just don't get asked about. So, but at the time, it seemed like a logical thing to implement. I want to jump back to the invoice imaging thing. 2015, it was like, put a piece of paper in the scanner, put a piece of paper in between every invoice, and the person we had doing this was barely kind of on board with even upgrading the system as is. So, your attestation and assessment of it was correct. It just was not great. We paid for it for a couple of years and then decayed it. But after we did the FRB cash management implementation, we had like a State of the Union with Creel, and they're like, you guys should revisit the invoice imaging. And I think we were like, sure. You showed it to us, and it took us like a week to turn it on, and it's night and day. It saves our accounts payable person so much time. And you're getting all of you don't have to worry, is the invoice number right, is the amount right, and all that stuff is getting automatically read, and out the gate it works now, and it did before, it does now. It's a completely different product. I wouldn't even compare the 2, honestly, and it was really easy to implement. Everything goes to an inbox, like someone's sending your invoices to an inbox.
And just to throw on that, Nick, so Nick doesn't have purchasing, so all of Nick's invoices are just true AP invoices. It's a line that's coming through. When you're using a product like purchasing, where you've got your purchase order number on the invoice as well, you're going to find, again, there's no Oracle guys in the room, so
Just one.
Sorry, one, come here. We don't make any money from the sale. You're going to find that when you have the purchasing in there as well, and you can say, that's our PO number, that one right there, it's going to go straight through. You're going to find it a lot better, certainly, than the old one, Nick Nance.
So that's what we were told, and we said 2024, it's on our list.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things on our list for 24, that's one of them. The other one is remote capture for receipts for expenses. Instead of using the app, we don't like that Oracle app at all for T&E expenses. That app is terrible.
Oh, the mobile application?
Yes, the mobile app,
Oh, really?
don't like it.
Doesn't matter to me. It's okay.
But the remote capture where you just take a picture and text it to the system and it shows up in your expense model, it's
It's
fantastic.
on the table at first.
Yeah, there's a couple good bots for that. It's some people, the nice thing about the app, and I'm on that, doesn't matter to me one way or the other, but the fact that it integrates with your phone, so if you have a meeting and the personnel's name, like that will automatically go into your expense report. Like I have used that and I have found it useful, but I also find it somewhat clunky.
You know, I think it's clunky, but the reason why we really ditched it, one of the main reasons, is because we have a Visa corporate card.
Yep,
Visa corporate card batches overnight,
yes.
whereas if you use the app, it goes in right away.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah,
And what happens is it's not matching the two receipts.
yep,
And then we're going through and deleting duplicates.
yep,
And it was too much of a concern, and we decided to ditch the app.
yep. No,
And remember, we did this at the start of COVID, so it really wasn't such a big deal.
if you're doing credit cards, it's like, I would say if you're doing credit cards, using the apps like belt and suspenders, especially if it's a corporate card, you just don't need both. But, you know, just, you know, a shameless plug for Oracle, you know, they just noted, they announced at Cloud World, they've got some really nice integration coming up with MasterCard. And then they had an announcement, I think it was 2 weeks ago, they're doing some additional things with Chase as well. So some enhanced integrations with regards to not only credit cards, but also expense reports and a few other things. So just note, it's a benefit, you know, Oracle's here, so, you know, the benefit of SaaS. And that's true whether you use an Oracle or some other product. As they enhance it, you don't have to worry about taking it up. You can bring it up at your convenience. What else you got, Nick?
So my other lesson learned was have a use case. Not a knock on any of these modules or products, they're just things that we kind of tried to do and then didn't wind up doing. So make sure you have a use for the product before you decide to try and use it, which is pretty easy and straightforward, and that's really how I look at it. Right? So for our standpoint, Oracle has more capabilities and use than we have needs. So there's always going to be something you could be doing. And so things that we dabbled in was DVCS, data visualization, cloud services, planning and budgeting, invoices at first. And in each of those cases, DVCS were like, oh, maybe we'll be able to figure out a way to use this. But didn't. Planning and budgeting, I think, you know, we kind of had it added on with FCCS. Wound up not using it. That wasn't really for not being able to find a use case. It doesn't fit our budget process. So there's just another thing. There's always gonna be things you could think you might need it for, but make sure you know exactly what you're gonna use it for, even if it's a little bit before you decide to try and onboard it, because you're gonna get back into doing your routine tasks and then forget that you're paying for this thing. And then, you know, it's not necessarily a failure, it's just something you didn't need. So that's just something to think about. And then it leads me to talk about FCCS because it's kind of in the middle, where we use it, we don't use it to its fullest extent, but we get value out of it, right? We just kind of use it as a checklist, monitors our month-end close, reminders for one-off kind of tasks, and from an audit perspective, it provides timestamps that those things are being done, which is so silly to be asked about because they're often like, well, how did we know somebody looked at this? That's our suppository of all those things, you know? All those things are being done. So yeah, I'd say those are the lessons. And in the future, going forward, you know, even though we're not using planning and budgeting, we still feel like there's a way for Oracle to enhance our forecasting process. Currently, we just kind of compile all the spend into the most digestible format, very detailed for all the people responsible for spend, and have them comment what they think they're going to spend this year. It's a big enough of a lift that we do it once a year. Whereas if we can automate it a little bit with a combination of OTBI and us being a little more consistent, maybe with like the way we describe journal entries, things like that, we could maybe do it more often and have people comment on that thing, keep more on top of their individual budgets, because we really do take it to the vendor level, which, you know, it just can't be automated at the end of the day fully because you're going to have so much granular stuff. You don't want to put everything everybody put on an Amex on a report, right? Things like that.
What do you use it for planning and budgeting? Is it Excel-based or?
No, we decayed it. I think
You mean from the system?
Yeah, that actual module we're not using it.
Right, what are you using as an alternative?
Oh, it's the account analysis report,
Okay.
you know,
They do account
manually.
analysis.
Then it gets dumped into Excel.
Yeah,
Right.
pretty much to be like, hey, what you spend on each vendor in each category, and you know, it works and works well, but it's, you know, there's definitely room for improvement there.
It's worthwhile to revisit. I mean, what we tend to see, and we chat here on the EPM side of the house, right? So we work a lot with Crayola and a lot of firms when they integrate with ERP, but at that time, your head is so focused on ERP-centric of what you need to do, the modules, the subledgers, everything that needs to go into it, that EPM almost like takes a backseat to it. And so while they're complementary to one another, doing them in conjunction is almost like a phased approach is a little bit better. I'd argue FCC generally always should come first because that's your actuals. It's tried and true. You know what it should come out to, right? Then outside of that, you can develop a pro forma, say you need one, depending if your company is shifted. Because now allows for less years of history that you might need in your ERP, more years in your EPM system. It's generally cheaper and easier to integrate, especially if you have disparate ledgers and so on and so forth, right? So what you then have is a stronger seeded run rate that can start seeding your planning and budgeting, right? As your forecast then seed right into your budget. How do you want to handle it? Is it one more summary than another? So it sounds like your vision for planning and budgeting may have not been implemented to your exact processes. And while Oracle might have some out of the box, there's a lot of custom implementations that we'll build, right? So where you'll have modules you can download, you do have to fit that module. Whereas if you have a vision, if you operate your company differently, it's worthwhile to talk about that, right? And so sometimes you already have that, you have a model, through and through, and you have different departments that run, right? Is it bottoms up? Do you need something driver-based? Do you need to override different things? So the capabilities are all there. It just sounds like it might have been a little bit more rudimentary at first. Certainly worthwhile to revisit.
Yeah, I think Rob's been doing the process for so long, and it's just the way management. It's particular to us and the way that we do it. And if there was ever an opportunity to change the process, we would revisit it. It's just that the way the process is done now doesn't make sense necessarily.
What I see a lot, Luciano says he's on the EPM side of the house, I'm on the ERP side of the house, and for customers that have an advanced planning cycle, right? They're really mature and they got a very advanced planning cycle. It's usually easy for them to uptake EPM because they have an advanced planning process to start with. But what my experience is if you have a very detailed process that you've been doing a long way, just getting it into a tool is such a big lift. Like what we usually try to do, and I used to try to do this from an ERP perspective in a lot of senses, is take the as is to the extent that it makes sense and just get it in a tool, whether it's financial reporting or whether it's analysis, and then you get people using the tool and the change to a new process, a better process, is usually easier. On the implementations that I've done, and I've worked with Luciano on a bunch of ones, and financial consolidation reporting, we're trying to fight the battle on two fronts, trying to get people to change the process and change the tool at the same time. And it was longer and complicated. So my advice typically is when we revisit things is, pick one battle. And if I got to pick one battle, the tool is usually an easier battle, right? You get people, same process. Hey, instead of using Excel, you're using Excel. Now it's just got SmartView plugged into it. Or you're using a web form. So it's the same tool, it's just a little bit prettier, and then you get that something uptake. And I think that's true for anything. So as your folks, again, when you started using the OCR tool, it was terrible. So when you decide to take a look at it in 2024, maybe it's a slower rollout because you're using the same scanners and emails, but it's a better back-end tool. So those are just interesting things that just kind of consider as you kind of go through and use some different perspective. So we talked about, much to our chagrin, we talked about OCR, right? We talked about some financial reporting and your things. So you've been using cloud for since 2015. Since 2015 to now, other than the fact that it works now, what would you say are the biggest improvements in the application that you have seen as part of being on a SaaS product and seeing the improvements come out?
It's always worked without a hitch. The improvements more so just. The functionality doesn't change. The UI doesn't really change that much. More so for us, it's honestly the consistency. I don't feel like there's been these massive improvements. We actually haven't added that much over time. Mm-hmm. But when I think about the fact that we haven't had to add any people and we've extended our business so much, I think speaks to a cost savings. The fact that our IT doesn't have to worry about security or really touch the system outside of managing users for control purposes, I know they appreciate, and that's hard to quantify as well. The big thing I look at, if I didn't say it already, is kind of what we spend as a team versus what other teams spend. We have a very specific function, but this is our only spend, and it is so much less than so many other teams to run what our 6 people do. And that's how I can look at it without having like hard numbers of like, what does it save us? It gives us great peace of mind. And I know we spend a lot less than a lot of other teams do to run, 6 professionals doing a function, so.
Question about reporting, ask Chris this as well. Have you enabled a lot of self-service reporting within the organization, or do you keep it centralized?
Can you explain what that is exactly?
Self-service reporting where people are, there's different levels of it, right? The easiest level is somebody goes in and is able to run a kind of standard report.
What we see a lot, what I offer a lot, I don't often see people take it up, what self-service reporting is in Oracle, and again, this is not a great use case for Alger because of your size, because 6 folks, right? But if you do departmental reporting for 20 department managers, just by example, right? We can turn on security in Oracle so that they only can see their department and they can use a self-service license and log in and run their own financial statements. We could also push a financial statement out to them that runs, and you can push it out through the tool. But I still don't see a lot of people taking that up. So self-service in our respects means they will log into the application, whether it's via an iPad or an iPhone or a PC or a Mac, and they can get their own reports without you as the finance department having to push them out.
Yeah.
So you guys are pretty small, so it's probably not something that is applicable, but maybe
With the
Chris.
departments that we use
Rob
it for, we're
comments.
lucky if they use the information, for them. And even the few users we have outside of the department that approve invoices and stuff, I don't think any of them log in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a zero, but it's more so for our size. Those reports haven't changed format in so long, and people are comfortable with what we're outputting, although manual. So, I mean, there's one user, which would be the COO, who would maybe have some interest, but I cannot imagine logging in. So
Yeah, it's just not practical.
yeah.
Chris, what about your team?
So we do use self-service reports.
Okay.
What we did is we built them in finance,
Okay.
and anybody could run them. Because what we find is no one's actually going in, once you build the report and save it out there, everybody has access to that report. So
Right.
when someone asks you, I need to run this report, we take care of it.
Okay.
And then we tell them how to run it.
Yep.
We keep everything in-house in finance. Now, that's the ERP side. The EPM side, that's what we're doing, budgeting, managerial reporting, and division reporting, all that stuff. I really don't get involved with that much. But even with all that, we still have a lot of departments that want specific reports.
Yeah.
And we set them up once and we don't hear from anybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's very content with the dozen that we built.
So here's a loaded question for everybody at the table to ask. So when we do demos, right? So one of the first things we always demo, whether we're demoing financials or the drill down, right? You can drill down from a financial statement all the way to, and it works, it's there, right? Does anybody actually use it?
We use SmartView all the time.
You drill down for SmartView, but
Always drill down
okay.
from SmartView.
Okay, and you do use that
Always.
functionality, okay?
Yes, constantly.
Okay,
And we use SmartView for some of our managerial reports.
Yep.
Some ad hoc reporting, stuff like that. But absolutely, we use that.
great. Nick?
Everything. SmartView is everything for
Okay.
us. It's because that's as deep as we need to go in most cases. And it does everything we need it to. And it's variance analysis, anything, you're getting right to the actual root document
Warms your
pretty
heart,
quickly.
doesn't it? It warms mine as well.
It's so easy to use and it has all your information, so.
It's generally the reason why, the reporting isn't probably as big of a deal, because everyone just loves SmartView, and then they create their own canned reports. Unless they need it pretty, they're not gonna come back to you.
Right.
It's usually that's really the goal of it all. You don't need the canned report and maintenance of it if you could handle it there.
And if I can just add on to that, I don't think it's so much everyone loves SmartView, it's they love Excel. Hence they love SmartView. Oracle tried to get away from, we're not going to use Microsoft products at all. They lost that battle. And they recognize they lost that battle. Great, do something with it.
Back at it, it's not as good.
I mean, so one of the only things I haven't really touched on is automating the financials. We use SmartView for them, and it works great. And it kind of is, and on a single entity level, it is automated. Really you only run into any need to do anything at a consolidated level. And we worked with Creel close and got to a process where we do our thing in Excel and then we make the system look that way by doing all the entries in an adjusting ledger. But it's extra work at the end of the day, and it's because we have entities outside of Oracle that we have to integrate. non-controlling interest, all that fun accounting stuff. And it's still a good process, but I know that that's always an end goal. Rob would love to be able to log in the system and hit a button and see the consolidated financials, which there are some quarters where that works. But, but it's not a huge priority. But it is a nice thing to think about as a future plan, because I know it's great peace of mind to know that it exists in perpetuity, within the system. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what we produce is like 30 slides, a month for management. And I don't think the end goal would ever be like, let's do all that in Oracle. We'd have to put so much non-financial data in there for it to even come close. But it's more like, in the future, could we use the system to generate something to add to that package? I know the information's there, just a matter of management saying they need it. And it's nice to know that capability's there.
With joint ventures or anything not wholly owned, FCC is a great add-on, right? Since you already have it there, it's not, you can either upload trial balances or write rules in it that'll effectively take whatever income and then write both sides of it, at whatever varying levels that you need it to, along with any, obviously, eliminations you need to have in a
Yeah, it's definitely not as big of a lift as I'm making it sound, but
Okay.
other things in the meantime taking precedent. But we know we're actually probably pretty close on that, especially since for the quarters we did do it, I mean, Chuck held our hand and we just kind of went through all the entries, so we know the process. But yeah, that's really it, unless anybody has any other questions.
Any questions?
How about online, Kyle?
Haven't seen any questions yet.
If you have questions online, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll be sure to bring them up. All right, Eric, you ready?
I guess I am.
So Eric, you had the most interesting color combination on your slides.
Yeah, I stay true to our bank's colors.
Yes.
Well, thanks for having me over. I mean, you'll hear from me. I'm not at the same maturity level as the gentleman to my right. We just begun a journey towards Oracle ERP, but I'm happy to share kind of the steps that we've taken so far. So
This thing's all for you, so you can, learn from them.
yeah, I'm taking notes. Jotting down notes. So my name is Eric Hernandez. I happen to know a few folks around the table in our prior lives. So I'm the North America head of finance for DNB Bank. We are a Norwegian, the largest Norwegian financial services institution. The group is about $350 billion in assets. And in the US, we have a smaller presence. We have about $30 billion. And I'm responsible for the entire financial function in North America, management reporting, direct reporting, taxes, expense management, AP, T&E, and all that. I've been in the industry for about 16 years, the banking industry for 16 years, and I spent 7 years in public accounting. And I guess I kind of listed my experience ERP-wise 16 years because I happen to have shared some of the interesting projects with Chris Camuglia. We've known each other for a
together
while.
in previous slides.
Yeah, in one of my previous lives.
So of the implementations at IDB, so Eric was at IDB.
Yeah, I was Chris. So we did OFSA, we did Oracle back in 2009. Yeah, so I was part of that crew as well. And then I moved on to different things. So now, if you move to the next slide, I think I already preempted who DNB is or who we are. I guess just to highlight, we are in the US, we're a commercial lender. We don't do retail in the US, but in Norway, they do both commercial and retail lending. So I guess if I move on to the next slide, and as I said, we're still kind of early stages, and the way DNB operates, being the largest Norwegian institution, they like to run the shop in a centralized manner, which means that most strategic decisions come from head office, and then all the international offices, we just adapt and kind of line up to implement those decisions. So when it comes to ERP, I guess the thought process began right about when COVID hit, and that kind of caused some delays as to what we wanted to do. But back in 2021, that's when the decision was made to go with Oracle. I think there were other companies that were assessed, but in the end, they decided to go with Oracle. And that's when the journey began for international offices. So we kind of started the project back in 22, late 22, and that's when I kind of listed the goals. So the key goals behind the decision was, I guess it was threefold. One, we wanted to just reduce operational risk. We did have, and we do have, different international offices. We don't have that many GLs, different GLs, but the same GL might have a different flavor in the US versus London versus Sweden. So that was one of the causes for concern in terms of operational risk. I think the second one is just that the group has, like any other company, after a few years, they want to go on this modernization phase. They see that technology is moving too rapidly, and we just have to kind of stay up with technology development. So that's kind of the second reason why we decided to do this. And the third reason is just kind of simplify the system landscape. As I mentioned, we have, different tools, and as you were talking about EPM and all this, I was just thinking, well, we have this tool for this, we have that tool for that, we have this tool for this. So I think that now we're just trying to simplify the landscape. We're going to go with Oracle from an ERP perspective. We have other technologies that we use from an EPM perspective. We use SAP technology for that, and plus other tactical solutions that we've had to develop locally to kind of face our needs. And then I guess from an approach perspective, and this is something that I found very interesting, and actually I really liked it from DNB, is that when they decided that we wanted to go with Oracle, rather than implementing that first in Norway and then rolling it out to the other offices, they actually decided to bring us in early on in the process, which I think was the right thing to do. Even though we are small compared to home office, I think that the fact that they kind of made us a stakeholder in the decisions and the design, I think that was an excellent move. And from an approach perspective, as I listed out, so pretty much it was organizational readiness. So the timelines and the objectives were shared with us in the national offices. We contributed to those. We challenged some of those decisions and goals. We made the listing that much longer of things that they wanted to accomplish. And I think that's worked well. So that was back in 2022. Back then, besides, once the organization knew what was to come or what was going to happen, they decided to start a global design process. And that was an exercise that they gathered, all heads of finance plus other representatives from the different international offices. And we kind of went over the, I don't know what to call it, I call it the menu, right? So these are Oracle, right? The processes, because we decided to go with GL, accounts payable, fixed assets, and accounts receivable. And we were hit with hundreds and hundreds of pages of, these are the standard processes that Oracle follows. Tell me which ones you like, which ones you don't like, and the ones that you like, what tweaks do you need? And I think that exercise was very interesting. It took several months to complete. It wasn't because, I guess, kind of alluding back to my life in IDB, I kind of knew some of those, but I think it was more kind of trying to fine tune those to different geographies. And as Nick mentioned before, I think that there's different requirements, right? Depending on the geography, right? There's different requirements from a reg reporting perspective, from a tax reporting perspective. So it was quite interesting to see how we could tweak, or at least put our wish list, right? This is my wish list. Will we get it there? We don't know yet. We're still kind of early stages. And now we are in the third step, which is the gap analysis. So we will begin our analysis hopefully Q1 of 2024. And kind of the reason, if I go back to the beginning of the journey, right? So we started thinking about this in 21. They went through the RFP process, and then they chose Oracle. And from 22, that's really when the clock started ticking, right? And it's a 4 year journey, right? And that's it, So many times when we think about implementations, you gotta think very aggressively that this will get done in 6 months, 9 months. No, reality is that this is gonna be a major exercise. You're dealing with, hundreds of legal entities. You're dealing with 10 plus foreign offices, plus the different offices in Norway, so it's gonna take time to develop, right? So I think that was a good perspective that management had, that yeah, we're not gonna sugarcoat it, it's gonna take time. Let's do it right. And I think that's something that we've really appreciated. So now we're in this gap analysis where we are looking at the different aspects, right? So we report in the US, we report on the US GAAP. For head office purposes, we report on the IFRS, right? So it is those nuances that you have to be mindful of. And I think what I've seen so far, the way the bank is doing this is right. My last point on this approach is that we started rolling this out, in phases. So a few entities in Norway, they've rolled out the application. We've been shown the application, what it does. So we saw the application early on during design phase, and we said, this is what I need, this is what I want, I don't need this, I don't want that. And now we're seeing this live with some of the legal entities that have implemented this. So now we're kind of providing feedback and kind of taking notes as to when our time comes, right? What is it that we're gonna want, customize or tailor for our needs? Which I guess leads me into the lessons learned. I think that, as I mentioned, just getting all the stakeholders involved is key, right? Especially, I don't know, folks on the online, right, who are thinking about this. I think that's, to me, that's one of the biggest elements to consider. Just bring everyone who you think will be impacted early on in those conversations, which is, again, what we appreciated in the international offices. Other implementations that I'm aware of, I think that we were left last, and I think that in hindsight, maybe is debatable as to the benefits of doing that. But now that this is something putting us right at the beginning was really beneficial. Second thing is just contingency planning, right? Even though it's just starting to be rolled out in other geographies, we kind of know, right? And again, having done this many other times, and along with Chris and other folks, like you kind of know, right, that there's things that will happen. So don't just be honest, realistic, and just build those buffers, right? Because it's something that we've done in North America as we're thinking about when our time comes for rolling out the tool. We're trying to make sure that the team knows and management knows, right? This is how much it's going to take from a time, from a resources perspective, from a cost perspective, from a time perspective, right? So that's something that is really important for us. And I think the third lesson that I've learned so far is this concept, right, that they call the 80% solution, which is, they're trying to build a solution in Norway. They're trying to get it to an 80%, meaning that, right, if the solution, can satisfy 80% of your needs, right, that's what the goal is. We'll agree on this 80% of the solution. And then the remaining 20%, that's where you'll do the specific gap analysis for each geography. You'll do the customization if needed, or if you learn, right, and I think that the reason why we have this long time frame is that there could be lessons learned also for us, right? If we see something that our colleagues in Sweden have implemented the tool and they might have changed some of the processes to benefit from using the tool, then it just makes you think, right? Maybe it's something we should do, right? Something to consider. Maybe the way we do it is not the right way, right? There could be other ways of doing this. So I think that's kind of the concept that I really like, the 80-20, right, solution. And having heard Nick and Chris, I'm quite excited to see once we have the tool up and running. And again, I do know the tool back in 9-10 when I was with Chris, so I think I like the tool. And whenever we've had those meetings, I just say, yeah, it's a good tool if we do it right. I think it's a great tool to implement. And I think that's been our journey so far.
So the whole goal today was to either get you really excited or get you really nervous.
I'm excited for sure. I'm excited.
All right. We'll take your temperature again. So a bunch of questions. Some of which you answered that I took notes on before when I started the presentation. How similar or distributed were the global entities from a process perspective and an ERP perspective?
Meaning?
Did everybody do it the same before? Like you're coming from one ERP system, or is multiple ERP systems? Were the business processes, was there any consistency, or were they all unique?
For the most part, we were pretty consistent, but one thing that we saw is that a lot of the, the discrepancies in processes were predominantly driven by regulatory reporting, right? So if you look at the US versus the UK, or even Sweden, the regulatory scrutiny that we are subjected to is that much higher, right, than there. So we might have processes that they don't have in other geographies, or vice versa. Some of the focus that they have on VAT, for example, in Europe is something that we don't have in the US. So they had created processes to meet those reporting obligations. So I think that that's one of the sources where we saw the most inconsistencies. But otherwise, it was quite similar throughout the world. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I noticed you don't have cash management on your list.
No, it wasn't listed. So we use different cash management solutions in different offices. But the thought process is that, when we kind of started asking the questions, we're going the Oracle route. We know that Oracle does offer all these, modules whenever we're going to look at cash management. And I guess this is kind of where we kind of are starting to walk before we run.
It's the 80%.
Yeah, the 80%, right? So once we identify the core elements, we'll get them up and running. And I guess as things mature, we'll revisit that, because I think that we're trying to get into a more consistent platform across the different offices, and definitely that's something that we'll come back to. Yeah.
Tommy, you had a question?
Yeah, is the intention to use the payables module to process your vendor payments? When you start in Norway and globally, do you intend on using Oracle to process your vendor payments, or are you still going to do that externally?
So I think we're going to do externally, because as I mentioned, we have other technologies that we use. In the US, we use Concur, SAP.
Okay.
Which, we personally, I really like. A lot of things that you guys mentioned, like invoice scanning and all that, we have it, but it's through a different, technology. In head office, they use a different technology as well. So I think they're trying to centralize this. So we, at some point, will have to reconsider, which technology serves the group best. And again, Oracle, I think nothing's off the table, right? Because once you start the journey, and if you start seeing the synergies, economies of scale, right, maybe at some point it begs the question, right? Which one is the more appropriate tool?
So they just announced, as I said a little while ago, there's some really cool integrations with MasterCard and JP Morgan. They're also doing some things with HSBC, I think. So they're starting to do a lot more integrations with banks. And I think that they're doing that because mostly for their EMEA clients, because the payment transmission formats and the requirements, they're so specific and they change all the times, especially for banks, that you'll be able to send, the idea is you'll be able to send the transmission to HSBC directly, and they'll handle the payments for you. So it's just, again, the benefits of SaaS, you get those enhancements on a quarterly basis, and as you guys can look at as you uptake the solution.
Yep.
So what makes you most nervous about the implementation here?
Well, we don't know, right? Because in the
Chris didn't do a good enough job getting them anxious.
No, but one of the things that when we're doing the gap analysis, and this is where by having been brought early on in the process, we started thinking about what is it that it's gonna break, right? When we start migrating from our current GL solution to Oracle. And there's been quite a few interesting things that we've learned. Things that we didn't think would be impacted. It's actually, there's a risk, and I think that that's really what makes me, I don't want to say nervous, but it's just I'm more conscious about the change, right? And just engaging with different stakeholders in the company, right? It's not the finance group alone. It's the loan processing area, the deposit gathering group, and the investments group, right? It's just making sure that there are no reports or data that are feeding these folks, that they're unaware of things that are going to happen. So I think that's just making sure that we do a thorough gap analysis when the time comes, to make sure that we don't miss anything, right? And if we do miss something, right, to have at least some guiding principles as to how we're going to tackle if something is not captured in the analysis. Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the ERP system you're currently on in the States?
So we use an AS400 application. It's called IBIS. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's old school.
AS400, wow.
Yeah.
Green screen still, right?
Yeah.
It's a COBOL CICS application.
Yeah. But interesting, it's one of those things that, we do have other tools. We use MicroStrategy and we use SAP for consolidation. So it's a mixture of technologies, right? And we do most of our reporting out of MicroStrategy. Yeah.
Okay. And all that data that you're reporting on is coming out of the ERP system or other sources?
So we have a data warehouse that we, that was built in Norway many years ago. And that's also something that we are trying to upgrade, moving to a data lake. So that's another process as well, another project that's running parallel to what we're doing here.
Okay.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about how much history you're bringing over. There are thoughts around that?
I guess I will not disagree with the gentleman to my right. I think, for regulatory reporting purposes, right, you must maintain certain, there's a retention period, right? Some data runs for 10 years, that's regulatory driven. Whether you choose to bring over just a portion of that into this system and leave the rest in the legacy systems, that's up, for discussion. But definitely we're not going back 90 years as somebody suggested.
Big
I don't
battles
know.
over that. You
Yeah.
can't imagine.
No. I guess what makes sense. I mean, I definitely, I wouldn't see myself going back more than 5 years if anything. So.
So one of the things I noticed across all your implementations, no HCM in any of the portforios.
What's HCM?
HR, human capital management.
No.
I don't know, we've always used kind of our payroll company for that to run things like reviews and whatever other, your PTO, and it never really considered it, although we did change from ADP to Paycom recently. It wasn't really, we didn't really think about it, It kind of just seems like it's comes with a package when you switch payroll companies, so since we're not the ones making the decision, why put the spend on our books? It's almost the way I would look at it.
Okay.
Nick, how many employees do we have?
We're up 180 these days.
And for the other guys?
650?
160 in the US. Okay.
And that
That kind of answers.
Pretty answers that question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Next question, please.
And the reason kind of asked, like, if we had Bank of America here, well, then you would kind of see, okay, huge company, people everywhere. Then you have kind of that kind of solution, where you have the small, the kind of the smaller focus that you guys have. The solutions you have probably, are meeting your needs already.
Cantor Fitzgerald runs HR, but I mean, they're 5,000 employees or 10,000 employees, whatever they are.
They're all over the world, so.
That's, I mean, it's a different story.
So Chris, what do you run for your HR, if you don't mind us asking?
ADP.
ADP?
And we use their HRIS system.
Okay. And Erica, are you aware?
The same.
The same, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty common.
Nick, how do you like Paycom as opposed to ADP?
I liked ADP better. I felt like it was easier to use.
I agree.
Yeah, Paycom seems like a little bit of a step
People
down.
feel the same way.
Yeah. I don't know what the impetus for the
Well, the
change
paychecks
was,
get out.
honestly. It was probably a cost savings if I had to guess.
I mean,
But-
it wasn't that costly to begin with, to be honest. ADP
Yeah.
is pretty cheap, so.
It was change just to change it. Not an inside scoop on that one, but yeah.
It does certain things better.
Yeah, I'd say the learning module's better, and so that it does a better job of having your training in there, letting you
It
interact with
integrates
it
some of our
there.
trainings, the review process is a little cleaner, non-cost related benefits, but
Not material.
not that material.
Yeah.
So your implementation team did it in Norway. Is there a team that's going to go into the different geographies to do the implementation and maybe partner with folks from those geographies?
So there's a very solid team in Norway, and they're just,
Just rolling it.
yeah, just living life, man. It's just going to different places. So that's gonna
So
be.
you don't get a chance to go to Norway.
Well, we've been to Norway a few times, just especially for the early phases of the project. But I think the idea is that they'll bring the expertise, and we'll see. I guess once we go through the gap analysis, that's when we're really gonna test if they can do that, or if we need to partner with local experts, right? And that goes for all their offices, because now they've only done the implementation in Norway. Then they'll do it in other European countries, and I guess that's when we'll really, put this to test, right? If they can handle this, or if we need to kind of engage with the folks.
What was the reason they picked Norway as a starting country? Is that the corporate headquarters or?
Yeah, so our head office, Norway, so that's where 80% of the
I should know this and I don't remember. So it's the krona, or is it in the euro now?
the krona.
It is the krona, okay. And is that their functional currency? They're going with local currency?
Yep.
Okay.
Eric, is that why they chose SAP? because it's European-based over Oracle or Workday?
You know, I mean, they had it when I joined the bank, so yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, but they've had SAP for a while, as far as I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Other questions for Eric? Anything we can do to make her nervous?
No, I think.
Oh, I'm shaking, you can see it
Yeah,
already.
Don't try and do everything at once. You gotta make sure you know. Those 4 things are enough to start.
Yeah.
So adding stuff later is definitely the way to go, I would say.
Good. All right, well, hopefully now you have some compadres to ask questions to.
Yeah.
Here's my cell number.
Here's your cell number.
So I have and this will be more for you guys, and Eric, you might get some things out too. When Oracle released cloud, they released this thing called Oracle Customer Connect, which is you go online, you can request enhancements if they get voted for, they get rolled into the applications. And there's been a long history of Oracle user groups and Oracle communities. Do you guys take advantage of those? Were you aware of them when, I've been trying to get you to join the OAG group forever.
Yeah, I feel like I've signed up for OTA, UG, whatever it's called, like 3 different times and then never
You never used it?
participated.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but I know there's a lot of events and opportunities to
We've had it
network.
for years.
Okay, and do you get a lot out of it?
Yes,
or
we do.
Okay, so in New York, they used to have a lot of, because that's the last time I saw you, was it?
It's possible.
That's the last time I
Very
saw you.
possible.
Yes, that's what it was. But they don't do as much of those anymore, because after COVID, I'm on the education committee for one of the user groups, and we have a national conference, and we still have, we call them geos, but it's just harder and harder to get people to attend those. So I just wonder if you still take advantage of them, and if you were aware of any of them and had taken advantage of Customer Connect or any of the support council that Oracle offers.
No, I haven't, but I will.
You know, I'll say that it pays for itself. Even, you're not using this once a month, once a day. But when you have an issue or you have a question, when you go out there and you ask the question, you see what other people have done, it just gives you ideas. That's all it is. Sometimes you need to bounce, your ideas off somebody else to try to get to an end state. It's relatively cheap. I mean, I don't remember what we pay. You'd think I would. Accounts payable reports me. No idea what we pay. But it's only a couple of $1,000s. It's not a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money.
And if you use it once a year, it's well worth every penny.
Oh, that's the user group.
Yes, the user group.
Okay, yeah, because the Customer Connect is
It's free.
Yeah, and that's good. That thing has monthly events. They talk about releases, so we can get you that information.
So for your,
Yes, please.
for your
Did not
edification,
even know
if
about
you go
that.
to Oracle Customer Connect and you just type it in, and you can, and if you've got an Oracle single sign-on, so if you ever log to Service Quest, you have one. If you don't, you can create one, and you can log on, and you can ask questions, but you can contribute. The other nice thing is there's a reports repository. So, and I do this all the time. Like somebody asks me, can you build me this report? Before I build it, I'll go to Customer Connect and see if somebody's already built it. And a lot of times they have, and they share the code, and you can download the code and then upload it into your environment, and it's free. I've done this for you a few times. It's okay if you don't remember, we can do it again, no problem. But they're out there. It's a really good resource. And the other one, as I said, is the is the OATUG. It's the Oracle Applications and Technology User Group. They've got they're based here in the States, but they've got affiliates in Europe. They got affiliates all over the world, so they have conferences. They recently just had a conference in England, I think. So certainly there's enough of community to take advantage of, and it certainly helps you with your journey, because as Chris said so eloquently, you don't always have to ask Oracle, and sometimes it helps not to. Sometimes just ask a user, see what experiences they've had, and bounce ideas off of them, and you get some really good responses.
The other thing to throw into earth is, Customer Connect, as Tom said, it's a great place to look for enhancements, or at least jump on the bandwagon for enhancements. Oracle have got good about it, certainly in cloud. When in the old EBS days, I want this, okay, well, we have to get everyone patched up to it, and whatever, and it takes forever. Tom and I have been on implementations where, hey, it would be really nice, or the client needs to do this with an approval. And just on the off chance, let's go and give that a try for the enhancement request. And Oracle came back to us a couple of weeks later and said, just give us a little bit more information about it. Okay. All right, we'll check back with you. And I think within a month, we had it. Now, just to be clear, That's one, that's one, one example of a really short turnaround time. But if it is something that's compelling, that seems that a lot of people would do it and it doesn't take that much, you get that kind of stuff. And it's a cool thing with everyone being on the same patch cycle, you can do that because you don't have to worry about, we've got to make sure it backports for everyone. If it works for you, it's going to work for everybody.
Yeah, I've had
And that's
three
the key to
enhancements in 5 years since I've been at Creel for 7 years. And in the time I've been here, we've had 3 projects where we put an enhancement request in 2 months into the project, and it was rolled out before we went live. And those weren't multi-year implementations. These were implementations. The longest one was like 15 months. One of them, he was saying, we put the enhancement request in, I'll tell you, March. They had it rolled out by June. Like, it was really quick. It was a basic enhancement request, but it saved a lot of time. So that's, again, I know I keep saying it, benefit of software as a service. You could never do that in an on-prem application.
Especially if you have a pain point, as Lee was mentioning, like, once you're on the same patch set, and this is true for EPM just the same, if you're having a pain point, it's likely a lot of other people are having a pain point. So it's either your design or it's truly that a lot of the users are experiencing it. So going on that message board, you pretty much ping it really right away.
Yep.
Just one question for all you. Change management, you guys brought it up. Is it something you thought of in advance, or as you're kind of preparing for it when you're doing your implementations, or as you start to get into it, you realize, hey, we really need this?
Going from 12 to cloud, I thought that was the biggest hurdle that we were going to find. So that was planned right from the beginning. That was the biggest part of the plan, is the change management side. We weren't changing our chart. We weren't doing any dramatic changes. We didn't have to change all our systems. Change management, just getting all of your operations areas, everybody in line to move forward, was our biggest challenge. Setting up the system is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of you change your chart, out of curiosity?
We added to ours, but overall, didn't really. We added the segments and we added more accounts when we felt it was appropriate. We didn't dramatically change the chart.
We added one segment in our chart, and I fought it, and they wouldn't listen to me. We set it up, we're using 5 different fields. We had 2 future use that we haven't used since 2009. And they said, we're gonna need a 3rd one, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. So we added it, we haven't touched all 3 of them now. So, complete waste of time and money, but, here we are.
And with regard to change management, is there a specific aspect of change management is one of these global terms, right? It means a lot of different things. Specific aspect that you think is the most important? Is it communication? Is it business process alignment?
For me, it's communication, because the process alignment, we sit with each group and make sure their process, especially when we did the original implementation of Oracle, we sat with every department and went through what they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. So when we went to cloud, it was more about communication, what's going on, especially in the COVID world. No one was used to working from home. So there were constant meetings on a weekly basis reminding people what they needed to do, to check their processes. It doesn't change that much, and we walk them through step by step. But
the iterative communication is critical.
It can, if you do it once, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You have to do it multiple times.
Okay.
You have to do it on a one-on-one basis for the managers of each operations area, and you have to take their team and do it at least a couple of times.
One of the things we've done on implementations is we've scored teams. Tried not to make it like an A, B, C, D, F, like it failed, but it's more which teams get it, which teams need a little assistance. What about at Alger?
I mean, the main users are all on the same team.
Yeah.
So, and we've been on cloud the whole time. So we haven't really had to worry about any changes are for us. The other users don't interact with it
Just
enough
had
to
to yell
require.
down the hall and say this is what we're
They just don't, they have made no requests of us to enhance really. And anything user base is all ran through IT just for control purposes.
Okay.
And they've made no requests or of anything of that ilk, honestly.
Okay, good.
So, Chris, I'm sorry, if I can just ask one thing. So you originally put in financials and then you put in procurement later on. So right? So when you came to procurement, did you have a purchasing system already that you were replacing? Or was this a, hey, we're going to start using purchasing now, so Mr. Supplier, you're going to get a purchase order from us. If you don't put a purchase order number on your invoice, we're not going to pay you.
So we've implemented procurement at the end of, let's see, we put that in 21.
Okay.
And with everything going on, we delayed the rollout of centralized procurement. We're still not fully utilizing the procurement system. We're using it specifically for IT and a couple of other small departments. It's self-service. I will tell you, it's a little clumsy because we don't have the proper staffing in my procurement department to help manage the group. So we keep on doing all these training sessions and people aren't getting it. And the struggle is staffing. Staffing not only on the IT side, but also staffing in my procurement department. So that's why when the gentleman over here asked me about when I was talking to CardWorks, I told them, don't do it until you have approval to hire, because we're struggling to get procurement rolled out with the limited staff we have.
So but the change management around that, so you have the internal change management of, hey, you want a new ThinkPad, you've got to do this, but do you have specific change management around the external factors? So we're going to deal with IBM or whoever the provider is, hey, when you send us an invoice, do this, you've got to put purchase order numbers on there. You had all that in mind as well?
So, two things. Yes, we have, what is the module? I never remember all the acronyms. No one can. But there's a module where the vendor can input all their information into our vendor system.
Supplier portal.
Thank you, Supplier Portal. You know, it should, who knew that wasn't an acronym? Because Oracle has all acronyms, something simple. So we have procedures out for them, and we also have procedures for some of our vendors as it relates to sending us invoices, how it needs to be presented to us, what needs to be presented. But very general documents, really the change management documents we have are procedures on how to use our system. And that we have on our website, internal website.
So one other thing, again, this isn't a sales pitch, one of the things you might want to look at for that thing, especially if you're having suppliers doing maintenance in your site system, we've typically found a lot of suppliers are like, why am I doing your system? But if you have make use of punch outs, where it is essentially their website, and you've got your catalog in place, then you don't have to maintain anything. It's just, I'm connecting to your system, we've got that agreement in place in your system. People are logging into your Oracle, getting into their system and bringing it all back. You sometimes get some flexibility there.
Right, so we did that for the only system we really did that for was stationery and supplies, WB Mason, that we used.
Yeah, it's that's the best place to start. I tell people that all the time.
I've seen people like with Granger, someone like
Right.
that, where it's all that kind of stuff. You know, we've done it for like mom and pop places where literally the mom and pop are building a website as it goes through. It's like, wouldn't have done it that way, but okay. But yeah, okay.
And the risk piece, if just for your education, there is an acronym. I could give you the full name. SQM is Supplier Qualification Management.
Okay.
That would be the closest thing to risk management from a supplier standpoint. So, again, as you move forward in your journey, if you got a risk management solution for suppliers, supplier qualification management isn't that, but it does a nice job of tracking if you've got, DBE requirements, or if you've got certification requirements. It can, as part of your upload process, your onboarding process, it can make sure that they upload them, it can make sure that they do those things. But the fact is somebody's got to check that stuff, and having a risk management solution say if they don't, what's our exposure? That's something that a risk management, Oracle's not going to replace that. That's not what it's built for.
Okay.
All right, last part of today, we're gonna play a little game.
What shirt do you want?
Yeah, that's the last part. So we're gonna play, and we're gonna play Stump the Consultant. Any questions you think you can stump Tom and Leon? There's a bonus gift if you do that. All right, come on, Eric. Eric's thinking.
I was just thinking about AI. I mean, where do you see AI, like you mentioned I guess.
It's an invoice scanning. Oracle's, and obviously Patrick, if you have something you'd like to hit up on AI that Oracle's pushing, but there's a few things aside from the invoice scanning. They've had an autonomous database for a while. And that was really kind of deployed on the tech side, but they take advantage of it now on the SaaS side. So, the database has bots or AI or whatever, the technology is, so that when it needs to be patched or something needs to be restarted, like that's already there. They've also got some things around decision making, like you can actually buy products to help you with like digital assistance, if you will. And a use case that we actually have a client that's using it for now is they want to help their people make better procurement decisions. So we're actually putting in Oracle's AI product as a front end so that people, it will ask them and prompt them for like what they want to buy, and it actually will gear them towards the right product so that they're automatically buying off the right procurement vehicle. So essentially what they used to do is people would ask for things, and if they had a contract for it and they had the right rules in place, it would route to the right procurement vehicle. But if it's a product that they're buying that's on a procurement vehicle, but again, they've got DPE requirements that they need to meet a particular contract, or they've got vendor diversification or different things they have to hit, it's all in the procurement person's head to do that. And the use case we're rolling out is using AI to do that so that they get that out of it and it routes it effectively. That's something that we're just starting. But Oracle's got a bunch of AI things that are coming out. Patrick, you might be able to speak to a little better than I.
A lot is around like the narrative reporting, so taking the numbers and providing kind of generative AI around what that might mean, and then allowing the end user to kind of go in there and tweak it based off of kind of any kind of insight that you would want to add. And then another one that I was just looking at today on the HR side is performance reviews. So if a manager is looking at what the members of the team have said about his or her employee, it'll summarize that for them, and then kind of they can then go in and create their own manager insight based off of that. So a lot of it is on kind of the generative side of taking the data that's there and providing some sort of first pass.
The use case that Oracle showed at Cloud World for AI reporting, it was a really cool use case. They, demo environment, so full suite, but in the reporting, they had AI that looked at, revenues were decreasing, quarter over quarter, right? And that was all well and good. And they put the AI against it, and the AI went all the way down. And the story that they told was it really wasn't an overall decline of sales; it was a decline of sales in like 3 key customers that they could get. And lo and behold, the real story was the customers were still ordering it, but because the supply chain was backdated, they took the orders, but they couldn't ship the product out. And so it really wasn't necessarily a drop in orders; it was they couldn't fulfill the orders because of the supply chain. And so it was an interesting story, but the data was all there, right? A human could have found that out if he did the analysis, but the AI went in, and that was the use case that we're kind of plugged for it. I've not seen it in live yet. I'm not even sure if it's GA, but they did show it at Cloud World.
I think it's some roadmap items, but
yeah.
There's also, they've shown discounting around purchase orders and spend kind of thing. So, hey, and again, for the industries we're looking at in this room, maybe not, but you start saying, hey, you're ordering some of this, well, if you go and order from this supplier as well, you get a better discount from there, and putting that kind of AI in place rather than, no, I buy widgets from Bob because I've always chose to pick them from Bob. Oh, if you divert over here, you can do that kind of thing. So I've seen some of that as well.
So definitely analytics, decision-making. I think it'll impact the user experience too. Customizing the user experience on the fly based on how other team members or you're using the application. Also changing business processes based on performance of the process. So I think we're still at the early stages. Anybody use ChatGPT, just for curiosity?
Love it. Kids use it at work.
Hang on, did you use it for your presentation today?
I did not. I will tell you, we can't even access it from our systems, from banking systems. They don't want you on ChatGPT. But
or Facebook or Amazon.com.
Right, you can't access anything. But for procurement, there are closed APIs that will allow you to take your contracts, put them in there, and extract information.
Really?
So, and I'm working with a company doing it right now, trying to do it. We're trying to set it up. So right now, I can't say who it is. But when you have so many vendor contracts and you have to extract so much information from it, if you load it into this system,
you'll pull it out.
You type in, I want to know when this contract ends and what the SLAs are, and it'll kick it out to you.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting that Oracle's going to add that to their contract system soon.
We'll have to look at the roadmap.
Is that a stump? Is that a stump?
So it's not an AI thing, so some of that is in contracts. So if you look at the contracts, in procurement contracts, as appropriate clause, like if you just dump the contract and there's a PDF scan, you don't get a ton of value out of it. But if you're using procurement contracts to generate your contracts and your standard T's and C's, that's already there. You
I
can
got news for you.
You can do it.
If you see what's out there
Probably
right
not as
now,
good as what they have, I'm not saying that.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out how to leverage this, you know, but I'm waiting for, I just have a new hire today, so, or a couple of days ago, so that's what he's gonna be working on.
Okay, good question. We're definitely at the early stages of what AI is going to do. Could be good, could be bad. Government's spending a lot of time thinking about it. You say you haven't tried ChatGPT?
Yeah, I mean,
It's,
there's ethical concern. We're accountants, so
No, not for work, but even for.
for fun, no.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I've heard of use cases of people making it right, you know, accommodation memos and things like that.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, I'm not there. I want to still prefer the human touch.
Yeah.
You try it once, you'll be addicted.
Yes, it's
Oh my
addictive.
God.
I'll tell you a story when we're off camera. Not a perverted one or anything like that, but
You know what I use, I'll be honest with you, I use it for once in a while, like, you know, I do a lot of financial reporting, international consolidation stuff, and like minority interest reporting, and like, you know, I do minority interest reporting, you know, once every blue moon when a client asks me how they want to present it. And like, most of the times I say to my clients, well, you tell me how you want to present it, and I'll make the system do it. But I get a bunch of times, like, I don't get folks of your level, Nick, I get folks that are just like junior level accounting clerks, like, well, I have no idea what the journal entries are. I'm like, okay, well, let's ask ChatGPT. And every once in a while, you can get a decent answer out of there. Say, this is how you should book the minority interest for this. And it's certainly helpful for things like that you just don't necessarily get from a Google.
That's the rule in our house. Ask Google first, then ask mommy, and then ChatGPT, and then you can ask me. All right, well, that concludes our session today. Thank you very much, Eric, Chris, and Nick, for preparation you did and participation. I know you weren't sitting around all day in your office today with nothing to do. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come visit. Hopefully you learned a little bit from your compadres here, right? Maybe a little bit about image scanning might be a good thing, right? And you learned a little bit about what's coming forth.
Absolutely.
So we'll connect all three of you offline, so feel free to, you know, pick each other's brains, and can always play Stump the Consultant. All right, for those of you online, we're going to end the session now. Thank you for participating. If you have any questions, you can shoot those questions into us via email, and we'll try and respond to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for this attending.